The War Bride. The sky over Sector 9 burned red. Flames rose from broken buildings and the ground shook with the sound of falling debris. Smoke wrapped the city like a dying breath. For the Zyrian warriors, this was victory. For the humans, it was another lost world. Commander Rain Carter opened his eyes to the sight of glowing chains around his wrists. He lay on the cold floor of a Zyrian prison ship, bruised, bleeding, but silent. Across from him stood a tall figure, slim, armored in black and glowing with silver veins under her skin. Her name was Avra, daughter of the war matron, and the most feared warrior in the Zyrian fleet. She did not blink. She did not smile. Avra had captured many humans before. Most of them cried, screamed, or begged. But this man was different. He looked up at her, eyes steady, full of something she didn't expect. Pity. "You're not afraid," she said, her voice sharp and cold. Rain said nothing. "You've lost," she continued. "Your base is destroyed. Your people are scattered, and yet you look at me like I am the one to be pitied?" He slowly sat up, wincing at the pain in his side. "Because you are," he said softly. Her eyes narrowed. "Explain." Rain looked around the cell, then back at her. "You've never known anything but war. You were born into it, molded by it. You've never asked why you fight. That's not strength. That's slavery." Avra's hand twitched near her blade. No one had ever dared speak like that to her, not even other Zyrians. Her fingers itched to strike him down. But something inside her paused. She knelt slowly in front of him. "You're lucky you're still alive," she whispered. "But that can change." "Then why haven't you killed me?" Rain asked. A strange silence filled the room. In the following days, Avra found herself returning to his cell again and again. She told herself it was to learn about human weakness, to study his mind, to understand his stubborn silence. But every time she came, he showed something that confused her: kindness. He didn't scream when the healers touched his wounds roughly. He didn't spit when soldiers mocked him. He didn't beg, even when he was denied food. One night she watched as he tore his only shirt to wrap it around a wounded Zyrian prisoner in the next cell. "Why would you help your enemy?" she asked him later. Rain looked at her with tired eyes. "Because pain is pain. Doesn't matter who bleeds." Avra didn't respond. She couldn't. News of Avra's visits spread quickly. Whispers ran through the ship like rats. Her soldiers laughed, behind her back. Some even questioned her loyalty, but she ignored them. There was something about the human that pulled at her curiosity, and something deeper. That night, she watched him sleep. He twitched in pain, body burning from untreated injuries. He had refused medicine. Zyrian tech didn't work well on human bodies, but there was one thing that could help: the Zyrian shard, a healing crystal of pure energy, meant only for immortals like her. It was sacred, forbidden to use on outsiders. And yet, she held it in her palm now, glowing with pale blue light. She stood at the cell door unsure. If the council found out, she'd be punished, maybe even stripped of her rank. Maybe worse. But he stirred again in his sleep, groaning softly. Her heart, something she once believed was cold stone, ached. She opened the door. Rain woke to soft light around him. The pain in his chest was gone. His body felt warm and light, like sunlight after a long storm. He looked up and saw her, standing quietly beside him. "What did you do?" he asked. She avoided his eyes. "Nothing important." "You healed me." "Don't speak of it," she snapped. "If anyone finds out, I'll be—" She stopped herself. Rain slowly sat up. "Why did you help me?" "I don't know," she said honestly. And in that moment, for the first time since the war began, they both saw each other not as enemies, but as something else, something neither of them understood. Later, when she returned to the command deck, her mother's message waited for her on the screen. "You've spent too much time with that human." The war matron's voice echoed coldly. "He is dangerous. Tomorrow you will end him." No arguments. Avra stared at the message long after it ended. She thought about Rain's words, about the pain in his eyes, about the way he smiled, even while suffering. Something was changing inside her, and for the first time in her long, immortal life, she was afraid of what that change meant. The prisoner who fought with kindness. Avra stood silently outside the medical chamber, her armored hands clenched behind her back. Through the transparent barrier, she watched the human, Rain Carter, sitting calmly on the medical bed. His wounds were healing faster than expected. The Zyron shard had worked even though it should have rejected human DNA. That fact alone disturbed her. It wasn't just against tradition, it was against nature. She had broken one of the oldest Zyrian laws. She had risked exile, disgrace, even death. And yet she hadn't hesitated. The image of Rain coughing up blood, trembling on the cold cell floor had haunted her. Something in her, something she didn't understand, couldn't let him die. Now, he sat in silence, staring at his hands like he was still deciding what they were meant to do. Avra walked in, quiet as a shadow. He looked up, his face calm, but his eyes searching hers. "You came again?" "I need answers," she said sharply, trying to sound like her usual self. "Then ask." She sat across from him, her posture straight, controlled. "Why are you kind to your enemies? Why didn't you fight back when we beat you? Why did you heal one of my soldiers with your shirt?" Rain's voice was steady. "Because this war makes monsters of us all, and I won't become one." Avra narrowed her eyes. "Do you think that makes you strong?" "No," he said, looking down at the floor. "It makes me human." For days after that, their conversations grew longer. He spoke of Earth, of green forests and blue skies, of laughter and music, things she'd never known. In return, she told him about Zyrian traditions, about her people's gift of immortality and the curse that came with it. Their hearts were cold. Their bonds were shallow. Even family ties were nothing but duty. Rain once asked her, "Have you ever cried?" "No," she replied instantly. "Not even once?" She looked away. "Zyrians don't waste time on pain." "Maybe. That's why your people fear death so much," he said. "You've never learned to live." His words struck deeper than any blade. Rumors spread like wildfire across the ship. Whispers in the halls, laughter in the barracks. One soldier even spat near Avera's boots and muttered, "War bride." The insult burned. It meant she had fallen for the enemy, that she had forgotten who she was. Avera stormed back to her quarters and threw her armor against the wall. Her hands trembled with rage and confusion. Why did she care so much what they thought? Why couldn't she forget the sound of Rain's voice, or the way he looked at her not with fear but understanding? She didn't know what this feeling was, but it terrified her. That night the ship docked at the capital moon of Kareth Prime. Avra was summoned to the War Council. The chamber was full of silver-robed immortals, their glowing eyes locked onto her as she entered. Her mother, the war matron, sat at the head of the table like a frozen statue. "You have been visiting the human prisoner," the war matron began. Her voice echoed through the cold chamber. "You used a Zyron shard on him. Do you deny this?" "I do not," Avra replied calmly. Murmurs spread through the chamber like a wave. "You broke sacred law," one elder said. "You risked our future," shouted another. Her mother raised a hand for silence. "You have two choices, daughter. End the human, or be cast out." Avra didn't answer. Not yet. Her mind was already back in the prison ship where Rain sat unaware of what fate waited for him. When she returned to the cell, she found him drawing something on the metal floor using a broken piece of stone. Avra watched silently. It was the shape of a tree, an earth tree. "What's that?" she asked softly. "A memory," he said. There was a place back home where I used to sit beneath this tree. I always thought I'd die there, not in space, not like this. Avra stepped closer. You don't have to die. He looked at her, eyes sharp now. You've made your decision? She hesitated. Not yet. He stood, moving slowly. Then let me tell you why I came here, why I let myself be captured. Avra's heart pounded in her chest. She had waited days for this. Rain spoke in a low voice, his words serious. Zyrian immortality is perfect, but flawed. Your people can no longer create life naturally. Your DNA is too pure, too refined. But if your genes mixed with human blood, she gasped. That's impossible. It's not, he said. We found records. From before your race became immortal, a child between us could live, could carry the strength of both races, the future of peace. She stepped back. You came here to find someone to breed with? Not someone, he said. The one who still feels. The one who hasn't become a stone statue in silver armor. She stared at him, her voice a whisper. You mean me? Rain nodded. A long silence passed. Avra's voice trembled. If I bear your child, I'll lose my immortality. Yes. She stared at her hands. They were the hands of a warrior. Hands that had ended hundreds of lives. Could they now create life? Outside the cell, Zyrian soldiers sharpened their blades. The order had been given. By the next morning, Commander Rain Carter was to be executed, but something far more powerful had already begun. A war within Avra's own heart, and she knew she might not fight on the same side for much longer. The forbidden healing. The lights of the prison ship dimmed to night mode, casting a blue glow over the metal walls. Most of the crew had gone to rest, but Avera remained wide awake. She stood in the shadows, staring at her reflection in a polished steel wall. Her own face looked unfamiliar now, like it belonged to someone else. She had been raised for war, trained to kill, praised for showing no fear, no hesitation, and no weakness. And yet, here she was, heart pounding, hands trembling, because of a human. Not just any human. Him. Rain Carter. The man who spoke softly, even when blood dripped from his lips. The man who never begged, never cursed. The man who treated his enemies with more compassion than most Zyrians gave their friends. And the man she had been ordered to kill by dawn. She walked through the corridors like a ghost. No one stopped her. No one dared. When she reached the medical chamber, the room where they kept the forbidden artifacts, she pressed her hand against the sealed door. It scanned her DNA and opened with a soft hiss. Inside, rows of relics glowed. Under glass, ancient weapons, crystal cores, and forgotten tools of the first Zyrians. In the center stood a crystal orb, twice the size of her head. It pulsed with soft golden light. This was not like the shard she had used before. This was the Soul Stone. It was only meant to be used in times of great Zyrian need, times when life itself hung by a thread. Avera stepped forward and whispered the ancient code. The glass slid back and the crystal floated into her hands, weightless but alive with energy. Her fingers stung from the heat. She didn't care. This would cost her everything. But it would give him life. Rain sat silently in his cell, trying to focus on the sketch he had drawn earlier. The tree. He had added leaves this time, trying to remember their shape. Were they oval? Round? He couldn't recall. He was losing strength again. The healing shard had only delayed the sickness. Whatever damage the Zyrian weapons had done was still inside him. His body was failing. His breath came shallow. He knew he wouldn't last the night. So when the door opened with a sharp hiss, he didn't lift his head until he felt the light. A soft golden warmth washed over his skin like summer wind. He opened his eyes. Avera stood there holding the crystal, sweat running down her temple, her hands glowing brighter with each second. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "Breaking every law I swore to follow," she said, stepping inside. "Saving you." He shook his head. "You'll be punished, your rank, your people. I don't care," she interrupted. "I'm tired of pretending I'm like them. I'm not. Not anymore." She knelt in front of him and pressed the soul stone against his chest. A blast of light filled the cell. For several seconds, time stood still. Rain gasped, his eyes wide, as warmth flooded through his bones. He felt it racing through him like fire and ice combined. His spine straightened, his pain faded, and his lungs filled with air so clean it almost hurt to breathe. He looked down. The burns on his skin were gone. The bruises vanished. His heartbeat, strong, steady. He looked up at her. "You saved me," again. Havara didn't speak. She collapsed into his arms, her body drained, her glow fading. He caught her gently, holding her like something sacred. "You gave me part of your life," he realized. She nodded weakly. "You were worth it." Alarms screamed through the ship moments later. The Council knew. The Soul Stone's use triggered a warning throughout the Zirian systems. Avera stood, still weak but determined. "We have to leave now." Rain shook his head. "You're not strong enough." "I'm strong enough to walk," she said. "And if we stay here, we both die." Together they moved through the ship. Avra used hidden paths and locked corridors. Only officers knew. Rain kept close, supporting her when her legs wobbled. They reached the hangar just as guards burst into the hallway. One guard raised a blaster. "Stop her! She's with the human!" Avera drew her blade faster than thought. In one sweep, she disarmed the soldier, kicked him back, and raised her hand for Rain. "Go." They jumped into a transport pod. The engines roared, the bay doors opened, and the ship disappeared into space. Hours later, they landed on a moonlit planet far from the war zones, a forgotten world with old ruins and quiet forests. They made camp inside a ruined temple. Rain started a fire, the glow flickering against stone walls carved with Zirian symbols. Avra lay against a pillar, eyes half closed. Her body still burned with exhaustion, but her spirit felt free. He sat beside her, holding her hand. "You didn't have to do all this," he whispered. "I wanted to," she replied, "but now you must know the truth." He looked at her serious. She took a breath. "If I give life, if I bear a child with you, I will lose my immortality. My body will become like yours, aging, breaking, fading." Rain was silent for a long time, then he said, "You're afraid." "Yes," she admitted, "but not of death." "Then what?" She looked at him, truly looked. "Of what I might feel when I live." He smiled. "Then let me show you." And for the first time in her long, endless life, she felt the warmth of being human. The mission he hid. The ancient temple walls held secrets of a time long before the stars were conquered. Symbols glowed faintly with old energy, and the wind outside carried the scent of ash and wildflowers. In that quiet ruin, Rain and Avra had found a small piece of peace, but they both knew it wouldn't last. Rain stood near the entrance, sharpening a metal shard he had found among the rubble. He didn't expect to use it, not yet, but old habits were hard to kill. Avera watched him from the stone altar where she rested. Her body still ached from the power she had given him. Her skin, once glowing with silver light, now looked softer, dimmer. But her eyes held fire. She finally spoke. "I know you're hiding something. A reason deeper than peace. What is it?" Rain paused, the stone in his hand still for a moment. Then, he slowly turned to her. He had always known this question would come. And now, it was time. "I didn't just come to negotiate," he said quietly, walking over to sit beside her. "And I wasn't sent just to spy either. I was part of a special project, a classified one. Even most humans don't know about it." She listened carefully, every word making her heart beat faster. "There's something called the eclipse gene," he continued, "discovered decades ago. A mutation found only in certain humans. It reacts when exposed to Zyrian energy, especially energy connected to creation and life. She frowned. Creation? Yes, he said. Zyrian immortality is stable, but sterile. You don't reproduce anymore. You clone, copy, repeat. But the original spark, the gift of birth, is gone, lost after your race chose to live forever. She looked away. We call it the great trade, mortality for power, emotions for strength, life for legacy. Rain nodded. But some humans carry what you lost. We don't understand why. It's rare. But in the right condition, if one of you bonded with one of us, it could reignite the old fire. The first true child born between our races in over 5,000 years. Avra turned to him slowly. And you have this gene? Yes, he whispered. I didn't volunteer for this mission. I was selected. I was told I might die. But if I survived and if I found a Zyrian strong enough to feel, to care, to choose me. She finished his sentence with a trembling voice. Then a child could be born. A long silence followed. The fire between them crackled softly. She stood up slowly and walked to a wall where faded carvings told forgotten stories. A mother, a child, a warrior. It would mean the end of my immortality, she said, touching one symbol gently. And for you, what would it mean? Rain stepped beside her. For me, it would mean I'd finally give life instead of taking it. She turned to him, her face caught between hope and fear. And would this child survive? Be healthy? He hesitated. We don't know. That's why I was sent. To see if love and life were possible between us again. The word love hung in the air like smoke. Avra's hands clenched. You say this child could bring peace. But what if it brings war instead? What if both sides want to own it? Rain looked down. Then I'll fight to protect it. Even if it cost me everything. She stared at him, at his scarred face, at his strong hands, at the kindness that lived behind his pain. He wasn't a weapon. He wasn't a tool. He was a man who had chosen to hope, even in the heart of enemy territory. That night, as stars lit the sky above the broken temple, Avera left her bed and stood beside him under the moonlight. I hated you, she said softly. No, I hated your people, your voices, your history. I was trained to kill you without blinking. Rain nodded, not interrupting. But when you spoke gently to a dying Zyrian, she continued, when you shared your water with the same soldier who beat you, something cracked inside me, something I thought I didn't have anymore. He turned to her. She was trembling. I feel, she whispered. And that means I'm already losing what made me one of them. Rain took her hand. Maybe you're becoming something more. Suddenly, the night broke with a roar. Flames lit the edge of the forest. A ship, Zyrian design, descended with sharp beams of light. It had tracked the stolen Soulstone's signal. Soldiers dropped down, armed and ready. Dozens of them. All elite. Avra and Rain ducked into the shadows, their hearts racing. They found us, she whispered. They'll want me dead, he said. And they'll want me punished, she added. Or worse, used. She looked at him, eyes sharp. We can't run forever, he said. No, she agreed. We won't. She turned to the temple's altar and opened a secret compartment, a hidden vault from ancient times. Inside was armor made for a Zyrian queen, gold-lined, trimmed, with violet light. A blade rested beside it, humming softly. Rain blinked. What is that? She lifted the sword. A weapon from before immortality. From when we were still real. As soldiers surrounded the ruins, Avera stepped forward, blade in hand, armor glowing. Rain followed her, no longer just a prisoner. Now, he was her partner. And in that moment, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. For the war bride had made her choice. Not for death, but for life. The last choice. The air around the ancient temple was thick with smoke and tension. Zyrian gunships hovered above the trees like silver vultures. Searchlights cut through the darkness, scanning every stone, every shadow. Below, elite warriors surrounded the ruin. Their armor gleamed under the moon, their weapons aimed and steady. In the center of the chaos stood Avra, dressed in ceremonial armor not worn in thousands of years. The violet glow pulsed from her chest plate, the old markings across her blade, flickering like living script. She looked like a vision from Zyrian legends, half war, half prophecy. Beside her, Rain stood with no armor and only a piece of curved metal as a makeshift weapon. But there was something in his stance, calm, centered, ready, that made even the seasoned Zyrian captains hesitate. Avra spoke first. I am Avra, daughter of the war matron, heir of the bloodline that brought the great silence upon this world. You will not touch him. The soldiers raised their weapons higher. From behind them a voice rang out, cold, familiar. It was the war matron herself, Avra's mother. She stepped into view, her long silver cloak sweeping behind her, her eyes glowing with years of command and cruelty. You've broken every law, the war matron said, her voice like ice over glass. You've disgraced your name, your people, your purpose, and for what? A mortal man? Avera didn't flinch. For the right to choose, for the right to feel, for the chance to live a real life. The war matron sneered. You speak like one of them. You are no longer Zyrian, you are nothing. Rain stepped forward, his voice calm. If she's nothing, why are you all so afraid of her? Weapons clicked in response, but still, no one fired. The war matron lifted her hand. This ends now. Surrender the human and perhaps I will let you live, you may return. Stripped of rank, stripped of power, but alive. Havra's fingers gripped her blade tighter. I don't want your mercy, she said. I want freedom. And if you refuse? Her mother asked. Avra looked at Rain. He nodded once, slowly. He would follow her, no matter the cost. She turned, back. Then come for me. What happened next would be remembered for centuries, by both humans and Zyrians. Avera moved like a storm. She deflected energy blasts with perfect timing, spinning between the soldiers like wind cutting through leaves. Her sword sliced through armor. Her eyes blazed not with hate but purpose. She wasn't killing for power, she was fighting for something sacred. Rain, untrained in Zyrian combat, used instinct. He dodged attacks, disarmed a soldier with a broken shield, and protected Avra's back without hesitation. Together they were not two races. They were one force, but numbers overwhelmed. A blast hit Rain in the side. He staggered. Avra screamed his name. She rushed to him, but the war matron blocked her path. Look what he's made you, the war matron growled. Weak, vulnerable, human. Avra raised her blade. No, she said, eyes burning with tears and fury. He made me alive. Their swords clashed. Mother versus daughter, immortal against the one who dared to fall from eternity. The fight was brutal. Blades clashed like thunder. Sparks flew. Their moves were reflections, perfect mirrors of years of training. But Avra had something her mother did not. A reason to fight beyond pride. A reason rooted in love, not control. In the final strike, Avra twisted, disarmed her mother and held her blade at the war matron's throat. The old general didn't beg. She only whispered, You would throw away immortality and for him? Avra lowered her sword slowly. No, I would throw away emptiness. For us. She ran to Rain, who lay groaning beside the fallen altar. Blood ran down his ribs, but he smiled when he saw her. I thought I told you not to get stabbed, she whispered, cradling his head. I tripped into it, he murmured. She laughed, through her tears. I'm ready, she said. He blinked. For what? She placed his hand on her chest over the armor where her heart beat. To give up eternity and create something new. From the sky the clouds broke. Golden light poured down over the ruined temple, Avra led Rain into the altar's hidden chamber, a sacred room known only to Zyrian queens. In the center stood an ancient device, the cradle of life, once used by the ancestors to channel creation energy. She stood inside it. Rain followed, hand in hers. As the machine activated, symbols lit up around them, swirling in spirals of blue and gold. Avra's immortal glow began to fade. Her silver veins dimmed. Her breath quickened. She felt fear. Real fear. Not fear of death. Fear of the unknown. Of life. Of love. And still, she smiled. Outside, the Zyrian soldiers stood frozen, watching as light exploded from the temple's heart. The war matron fell to her knees, eyes wide. The choice had been made, and something ancient, something holy, had returned. Later, as silence returned and smoke drifted over the land, a heartbeat echoed inside Avera's womb. Not immortal, not divine, but real. A child was coming, born of two enemies who chose peace, born of a war bride who gave up forever, to live for what truly mattered. The Immortality Gate. The forest around the temple slowly healed, as if nature itself responded to the change. The fires had died out, and the wind moved gently through the trees, carrying the smell of new rain and old stone. But inside Avra, a storm was growing stronger with each passing day. Her immortal light was fading. It wasn't a guess, it was fact. Every Zyrian could feel the life force of their kind. Avra once glowed brighter than most, her presence sharp and commanding. But now that light was soft, uncertain, human. She often stood at the edge of the forest cliffs, watching the sky as if searching for something. Not danger, not enemies. She was looking for courage. Rain found her there one evening, barefoot in the moss, her hand resting on her belly. The child was still forming, too early to sense clearly, but she could feel it. A faint rhythm. A second. Heartbeat that wasn't hers. "You're quiet tonight," Rain said, stepping beside her. She didn't look at him. "I'm afraid." He stayed silent. She had never said that word aloud before. "Not afraid of death," she added, "but of becoming just a woman, a mother, a mortal." He sat down on a smooth stone beside her. "You're not just anything. You're still you." She shook her head. "I was born to lead, trained to never hesitate. Now I second-guess every breath." Rain leaned back, staring at the stars. "That's what it means to be alive, to wonder, to choose, to fear losing, because now you have something worth losing." She turned to him. "I need to go to the gate." His eyes narrowed. "The Immortality Gate?" "Yes. Before my time runs out, I need to say goodbye to the part of me that will never return." The Immortality Gate stood in the heart of the Silent Valley, a sacred place known only in whispers, even among the Zyrian elite. It was not just a physical gateway, but a spiritual one. It marked the border between forever and fragile, between gods and mortals. Legend said it was built during the Great Trade, when the first Zyrians surrendered their natural lives in exchange for perfect eternal bodies. Some believed stepping through it reversed the bond. Others believed it revealed the truth of one's soul. Avra didn't go there for answers. She went there for closure. They traveled for 3 days through rough terrain, across red cliffs and deep canyons. Along the way, Rain built fires and made jokes, sometimes clumsy, sometimes charming. Avra didn't laugh out loud, but he could see the corners of her lips twitch. On the final night before reaching the gate, they camped beneath a rocky overhang. Stars lit the sky above, and a soft glow shimmered in the far distance. Rain watched her from across the fire. "You still think I'm the enemy?" he asked. She looked up, surprised. "No, not for a long time." He leaned closer. "Then who? Do you fight now?" She looked into the flames. "Myself." By morning, the valley opened like a scar between mountains. The gate rose at the far end, tall and glowing, etched with living runes that shifted as the wind passed. It was beautiful and terrifying. Avera approached slowly, each step heavier than the last. Rain stayed behind, watching with both fear and pride. She stood before the gate, staring at the shimmering curtain of energy between its pillars. Her reflection moved within it, not as she was now, but as she used to be. Fierce, glowing, untouchable. Then the reflection changed. It showed her cradling a child, a little girl with silver eyes and brown skin, Rain's eyes, her strength, a future. Tears welled in Avera's eyes, shocking her. She hadn't cried in centuries, maybe never. But now she was trembling and smiling. She stepped forward. The energy touched her skin like sunlight and storm combined. It burned and healed, stripped and rebuilt. She fell to her knees as her immortal core unraveled, not with pain but with overwhelming truth. She had never known what it was like to truly feel. Now she did. The gate accepted her choice and gave her back her soul. Rain ran to her as the light dimmed. She lay on the stone floor, breathing hard, her glow completely gone. Her skin was warm, soft, and human. He held her gently. "You did it." "I feel small," she whispered. He kissed her forehead. "Welcome to the world." She chuckled faintly. "Everything hurts." "You'll get used to it." He helped her stand. Together they walked away from the gate, and behind them the great pillars began to crumble. The gate had served its purpose. There was no going back. That night, they returned to the camp, and Avera slept like she never had, before, deep and dream-filled. She saw the child again, not in fear, not in danger, but laughing, alive. In the morning she woke in Rain's arms. No armor, no power, just love. And for the first time in her long life, she didn't want to be anyone else. But peace is never permanent. High above the valley, a shadow passed. A new ship, Zyrian, and this time, they didn't come to capture, they came to cleanse. Because the child growing inside her was not just a symbol, it was a threat to everything the Zyrians had built, and soon, everyone would want it, dead or alive. The child of peace. The world was still. Birdsong echoed in the trees. A slow wind moved through the valley, brushing the grass with a soft hush as if nature itself was holding its breath. But peace was a lie. High above, the Zyrian warship, Valkor's Mercy, cast a long shadow across the land. Its underbelly opened, and dropships fell like arrows from the sky. They weren't here to negotiate. They weren't here to ask questions. They were here to erase a mistake. And that mistake was growing inside Avera's womb. Inside the temple ruins, Avera felt it before she saw it. A weight in the air, a deep pressure in her bones. The Zyrians were near. Their presence pulsed like a storm coming over the mountains. Rain helped her sit on a smooth stone bench, wrapping her in a travel cloak. Her face was pale, her body weaker now that her immortality had fully left her. But her eyes were fire. "They're coming," she said. He nodded. "I counted 5 dropships, elite units." She didn't need to ask how long they had. Not long enough. Rain grabbed the blade she once gave him, her old ceremonial sword. He had practiced with it during their travels, learning its weight and rhythm. It still felt awkward in his hands, but it was better than nothing. "I'll hold them off," he said. She shook her head. "You'll die." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I'll die buying you and our child another breath." Avera reached out and grabbed his hand. "You won't die," she said. "You'll live. We all will." He looked into her eyes. "You don't believe that?" "No," she said, "but I want to." The ground trembled. A massive figure landed at the temple entrance. A Zyrian warrior in crimson armor. His body towered over Rain and his voice boomed with command. "I am Commander Zeth. By order of the War Matron, you are to surrender the abomination growing inside you." Rain stepped forward. "Come and take her," he said calmly. Zeth laughed. "No need. I'll kill you first, then tear it from her." But before he could move, Avra stood, not fully strong, not glowing with power, but standing. She lifted her hand. The old energy of the cradle of life still pulsed inside her fingertips. "You touch this child," she said, "and the stars themselves will mourn what happens next." The soldiers hesitated. They weren't used to fear, but something in her voice, something in the air, made them pause. Suddenly the ground cracked beneath the temple. Light burst from the altar room, golden and deep, wrapping around Avra and Rain in a swirl of warmth. The baby had awakened, still unborn, still inside her but alive and aware. The light grew stronger, pushing back the invaders. Soldiers screamed as their weapons melted. Zeth staggered backward, shielding his eyes. What is this?" Rain held Avra tightly. "She's protecting us," he whispered. "The child is choosing." And then it happened. A scream rang out. Not from Avra, but from the universe itself. It tore across the valley, a sound that made even mountains tremble. The air shifted. The sky twisted, and every Zirian dropped to their knees. Their eyes glowed, not with power but with memories. Memories of warmth, of family, of mortality. They began to cry, each and every one, even Zeth. He stared at his hands, confused, broken. "I remember my mother's voice. I haven't thought of her in centuries." Avra fell to her knees, gasping. Rain held her as the contractions began. There, in the middle of battle, beneath a crumbling sky, she gave birth. The child came into the world wrapped in light, not silver like Zirians, not red like human blood, but golden, pure, new. The baby girl did not cry. She opened her eyes, and everyone stopped moving. Zeth fell to the ground, weeping. Rain couldn't speak. Even Avra, covered in sweat and pain, smiled in disbelief. "She's perfect," she whispered. And in her heart she knew. Her daughter was not just a child. She was a bridge. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The war paused. Zirian commanders refused to attack. Human leaders called for talks. Across distant colonies, stories spread of a warrior woman who gave up eternity to create hope. Some said the child was a goddess. Some said she was a weapon. But those who saw her knew the truth. She was a beginning, the first child born of peace, of love, of pain, and choice. 1 year later, on a quiet hill near the ruins of the old temple, Avra and Rain sat together beneath a tree. Their daughter crawled through the grass laughing at butterflies. "She has your eyes," Avra said. Rain smiled. "She has your fire." They watched her in silence for a long time. Then Avra turned to him. "Would you change anything?" she asked. He shook his head. "Not one moment." She leaned into him, closing her eyes. She could feel the pulse of life now, not only in her child, but in her own heart. She had lived for centuries without ever truly being alive. Now, she had everything, and nothing else mattered.